Hey all. Okay, so I can talk very briefly. It's Vanessa Love. Um, all right. I guess if this is your first time watching my channel, thank you. If this is not, then oh my gosh, thank you for continuing to watch my channel. All right, so today I wanted to talk about research for art therapy. So I'm hoping that things change. I don't read the American Art Therapy Journal. Um, a couple of years ago, it was just art therapists hated it. Like it was notoriously badly written. Um, and what I noticed is that a lot of art therapists either are very technical and they can research, or they just want to do case studies. And case studies, they don't always work. Specifically, what I wanted to talk today about is the lack of research with people who have self harmed. Now, a lot of art therapists actually have worked with people who self harm. My whole thesis was about people who self harm. And the only research that I had about art therapy with a client who self harms was one resource for art therapy with a client who self harmed. Um, so there wasn't much there because it was a case study. And some of the stuff that had been, talked about in Diane Milia in her book didn't really uh, apply to what I was doing. Um, uh, like, here's the self promotion part. Okay. This is available on PayHip. I think I have it at like set at $1 or two, which I probably get like a small percentage of. Um, and the reason that I have it set to an amount is because I worked on this for a year and a half, and I had to pay each time, each semester for that. So I'm like, like this is important information. So like other people are making money off of their stuff, so you know, like for me, I'm like it's a very small, amount to pay for anything. Um, so so I have that available on PayHip if you're interested. And self promotion. So I wrote a thesis about people who self harm and the themes in their artwork. So I had 8 participants through online participation. It probably would be better now, but this is now like 7 years ago. Um, and it was draw a picture of you know, your pain, and then draw a picture that's healing for you, and write a little bit about it. And that was, for me, that was like really amazing to see like the different artwork that people chose, and all of that stuff. And it was interesting, but I mean, I spent a year and a half on this, so I knew like all sorts of research. I think one of the best ones was the ones that I still use is Sayomoto, and that person, and I can't remember the first name, but they had like 6 reasons why someone would like self harm, and they were really, it's a really good research article. Actually, I don't even know if it's research. It's just kind of like, here's a theory, that we're proposing. The reasons why people might self harm, and one of them is like growing up in a environment where like punishment is a part of the environment. And I always just am kind of like, yeah, so if you internalize that, and so every time you do something bad or you feel bad, then you would self harm, that makes sense. It's definitely still one that I use for my research or my presentations when I'm able to do them. Um, and there's a lot of research about self harm, and particularly with um, did I find a lot with adult males? I can't even remember. Like I just took I would go to the Yale Medical Library and sit there because I could download stuff and print it out, and I just had head stacks of. I mean, they were just everywhere. oh my god, all over my tiny studio apartment, just like stacks of these like research papers that I would go to Yale and get them, and finally had to like actually write. The research part was super fun. Writing, not so fun. You have to like watch um, every period, everything, and like one of my advisors didn't even like the first sentence, so I switched it up, even though other advisors were like, we totally get what you're talking about. You don't have to change it, but it was just easier. Um, so yeah, that was definitely, there's just, I just wish there was money out there and people were interested in researching more about art therapy. But it got me thinking today, like, okay, maybe some art therapists need to get together and do like a snapshot of their clients and be like, oh, out of 20 clients that I've had this week, here's the majority of their diagnosis, here's their insurance, here's a little, uh, here's some of the themes that they talked about in their therapy or something. Or like you can have them write, art therapists can have, their clients write something, or they can like go through their notes from the last week and be like, oh, this person talked about this. Let me, put that on, that seems like a theme this week. And just, write about that and publish it. And like, my friend pointed out today, like, that when you're practicing, you don't have time to publish, and when you have time to like research and publish, like you're more in academia anyway. And it's definitely like a different mindset, like, oh, here's this deadline compared to I'm trying to just work with my clients, because I mean, there's plenty of art therapists, as I've said, who have worked with people who self-harm. It's just they don't write about it, which is very unfortunate and sad. It's doing it almost a disservice to the clients who are self-harming, because I mean, if you ask any art therapist who has worked with a person who self-harm, and even the people who have researched PTSD and self-harm, they'll say creative outlets are the best thing for people who self-harm, because they're trying to get their pain out and they're trying to find ways that are safe for them to express themselves, and like art therapy definitely provides that. So why isn't this more understood? Why isn't this more researched? Like, why aren't people talking about this? And if you do have the American Art Therapy Journal, and there is a great research article, like, please let me know. Like, that seems like something that, like, oh my gosh, I'd love to find out about that. The other thing is that there's like, it's just kind of like every other profession, where it's like there's some top paid people who, like almost every student has read their book. And then like I've researched, like my friend lived in Albany and he wanted to see an art therapist, and so he had contacted one, and like she had a book that she had written and published. And I just got the MARI, the Mandala Assessment Research Instrument training, and my like the person who was teaching me, she graduated like a year after I did, and from a different college, and she's already written a book. And I'm like, see, I don't even know these things. Like, oh my gosh, like there, it's very much like, here's the upper echelon, but here are all these like other awesome art therapists like writing books, and like they're not emphasized as much. And there's also just not a presence. There's only a select few who do have online presence. And it also happened when I lived in New London. There were a couple who had, like, there were a couple of art therapists who had lived around there. None of us had gotten together. Like, I only know about some of them because I worked with agencies, or I found out about them and I reached out to them. But otherwise, they're just kind of like, no, I'm not a therapist. And then they're like quiet and done, like just kind of live their life, which I'm like, oh my God, we could have, I think there was like 5 in one place. We could have totally had like, tea, coffee, and dinner, like every couple of months, and like been fine. Like, that could have been kind of easy, to get 5 people together. But, it just wasn't, art therapists don't really, I don't know, advertise themselves, get out. It's such a weird thing. I mean, the other thing is that the one other like creative arts therapist in like nearby, just, I mean, she was busy, and I don't mean that as like, I mean that as an insult. She was an asshole, and like she just wasn't very connected to many people. Everyone knew who she was, but she wasn't very connected. Um, like she was not going out. She was not advertising herself. She was like, all right, well, I have this thing, um, and I don't know. Like there's some mistakes that she made that when my friend went to go work with her, I was just like, no, that's illegal. No, that's against the contract. No, you can't do that. And like, promises that I'm just like, oof, and kind of a flightiness too. But the other art therapists who I'd met who lived in the area, who like randomly ran into, they were like spot on. It's just they worked in agencies and they just didn't really reach out. I guess it was weird. But yeah, so it is interesting to be in this field and to just kind of have people like do these really awesome things and then just like kind of like work in agencies and be quiet about it, um, and like I wish that they weren't. I wish that they would just be like, yeah, like here's this thing that I do and like I want to talk about it. But maybe it's bringing work home. Maybe it's not where they want to be. It's not where they are, um, and that's kind of how that goes. But I would love to see more like actual research from the art therapy community instead of case studies, because like I can't imagine just taking like one traumatized person and like be like, here's trauma, and like that's it, presenting that, whereas like you have Bester Vanderkolk who's like um, in Boston, like researching almost everything that he can, I think, about trauma, and just like writing books and being like, hey, well, this is a thing, and like he gives speeches and stuff. He's like almost one of those like celebrities in like the psychology world, and because of that, when I met him, he's a little arrogant, and I've heard that that's kind of how he is, where he's just like, oh, like I wasn't like excessively praising him or like adoring. So I was just like, yeah, I do art therapy and I really appreciate your work. I used your work in some of my research for my thesis. And it was like, I think he took a second to process that in order to be like, oh my God, yes, yeah, like I appreciate that you like do art therapy. But I think his like reluctance was that I wasn't adoring, wonderful, like as many people are. And actually, like, most of the people who were at that conference did not want to stick around for his speech because he was talking about trauma, and it was like a lot of them were nutritionists, so they don't deal with trauma, they just deal with nutrition. And I guess they didn't have to stay the whole time, so they're just like, yeah, peace out, last speaker, we're done. Which I was very surprised by, especially for a day-long conference. Yeah, so I mean that was like kind of just circumstantial, like unfortunate situation. But uh, like I mean I think art therapy is wonderful, and maybe those people who aren't coming forward and saying that they wrote books about art therapy, have been beaten down by the, higher echelon art therapists who are like, we did what we did now, like, fuck you for like trying to, outrank your ranks or something. I don't know what they're like outside of, the few bad incidences that I've had with a couple of them. But anyway, I hope that's helpful and that this kept your interest, and I hope to update soon. All right, have a good one.